There comes a time in every life when the weight of the world feels too heavy to carry. When dreams crumble, relationships break, and nothing seems to move the way we planned. It is in those moments, my friend, that you must remember this truth. You were never meant to carry it all alone. There is a divine power greater than your pain, wiser than your understanding, and stronger than your fear. When you learn to put everything in God's hands, you will see miracles unfold in the quiet corners of your life. You see, life will test you. Again and again. It will push you to the edge of your strength, to the very limits of your patience. And just when you think you can't take another step, that's when surrender becomes your greatest strength. Not the kind of surrender that gives up, but the kind that trusts. The kind that says, I don't know how this will work out, but I know who holds my future. When you release control, you make space for peace. You make space for healing. You make space for grace to enter and do what you cannot. The storms will still come, but your heart will not break the same way. You will stand in the rain with faith as your shelter, and somehow, you'll find joy even in the thunder. Because trusting God is not about escaping pain. It's about transforming it. It's about knowing that even your heartbreak has purpose, that even your waiting has worth. Every closed door, every unanswered prayer, every detour, it all has divine meaning. So today, don't just hold your worries. Hand them over. Don't just speak about faith. Walk in it. Don't just hope for peace. Believe that peace is already yours. Because when you put everything in God's hands, you'll soon discover that His hands have been holding you all along. There is a quiet power in surrender that many people never discover. In a world that glorifies control, we are taught that success comes from holding on tightly, from planning every move, from fighting until our last breath. But life has a way of humbling even the strongest among us. There comes a moment when no amount of effort or logic can fix what's broken. You may find yourself staring at closed doors, unanswered prayers, and silent nights, wondering if you failed. But surrender is not failure. It is not weakness. It is the sacred act of releasing what was never meant to be controlled by human hands. It's saying, I've done all I can, now I'll let God do what only He can. That is not defeat. That is divine wisdom. True strength is not in the grasp, but in the release. Many people think that to let go is to give up, but letting go is often the most courageous thing a soul can do. When you surrender your plans, your pain, your fears, you're not abandoning your future. You're entrusting it to the one who already knows the way. The moment you stop fighting against the current and allow God's river to carry you, you begin to experience peace that logic cannot explain. Strength is not about how tightly you hold on, it's about how faithfully you can let go. And in that letting go, you will find your spirit rising higher, lighter, freer. There is beauty in surrender because it teaches humility. It teaches us that we are not the masters of time, destiny, or outcome. We are travelers, guided by an unseen hand that writes our story with perfect wisdom. When you surrender, you stop demanding answers and start receiving guidance. You stop asking, why is this happening to me? And start trusting, this must be happening for me. You begin to see life not as a battle to win, but as a journey to trust. The burden that once felt unbearable suddenly feels lighter, because you are no longer carrying it alone. Surrender invites divine strength to meet you where your human strength ends. Every great transformation begins with surrender. Think about the seed buried in the soil. It must break apart completely before it becomes a tree. It must let go of its form to fulfill its purpose. You, too, must let go of who you think you must be to become who you are meant to be. Sometimes God asks you to release your plans, not to punish you, but to prepare you for something greater. The pain of surrender often precedes the beauty of breakthrough. And though it may feel like loss at first, It is in that space of release that miracles begin to take root. Surrender does not mean you stop dreaming or caring. It means you stop forcing and fearing. It means you continue to move forward with open hands instead of clenched fists. You trust that what is meant for you will never miss you. You trust that even in silence, God is working behind the scenes. You no longer beg for things to happen your way. You learn to rest in the confidence that His way is always better. When you walk with that level of faith, your heart no longer trembles at uncertainty. You begin to understand that true peace is not found in control. It's found in complete trust. So, when life asks you to let go, do not resist. Do not see surrender as the end. See it as the beginning. Because when you release your grip, you open your palms to receive. You make room for divine intervention. The strength that once came from self-reliance transforms into a deeper, quieter power. The power that flows from faith. Surrender is not about being powerless. It's about realizing that the greatest power is not in what you can do, but in what God can do through you. And when you learn to put everything in His hands, you'll see that those same hands have been carrying you all along. Faith begins where understanding ends. It is the quiet confidence that whispers in your heart when everything around you seems uncertain. It is not built on what you can see or touch, but on what you know deep within, that there is a divine plan unfolding even when life looks like chaos. Faith asks you to trust without evidence, to believe without clarity, to move forward when you cannot see the path. That is not easy. The human mind wants answers, control, and security, but the Spirit knows that growth happens in the unseen. When you learn to have faith in the unknown, you step into a higher kind of peace. A peace not built on certainty, but on trust. The unknown often feels frightening because it demands vulnerability. It asks you to walk through life without a map, to love without guarantees, to dream without knowing when or how it will come true. But it is in that uncertainty that God does His finest work. The soil of the unknown is where miracles grow. When you stand at the edge of what you can't predict or explain, that's when faith becomes real. Anyone can trust when life makes sense, but true faith is forged in the dark, when you choose to believe that light exists even before the dawn appears. You learn that faith is not pretending the storm isn't there. It's knowing that you are safe even in the middle of it. Faith doesn't erase fear, but it gives you the courage to move despite it. It teaches you that your steps don't have to be certain for your direction to be divine. You may not know what tomorrow brings, but you can still walk forward because you know who holds tomorrow. That's the beauty of faith. It doesn't depend on sight, it depends on trust. The path may twist and turn, but every detour, every delay, every disappointment is leading you somewhere necessary. When you have faith, you stop asking, "What if it doesn't work out?" and start saying, "Even if it doesn't, I'll be okay." That shift changes everything. Faith in the unknown also requires patience. Sometimes you will pray and hear silence. Sometimes you will try and see no progress. But silence is not absence, and waiting is not wasting. God uses the waiting room to prepare you for what's next. Every unanswered question is an invitation to trust more deeply. Every closed door is redirection, not rejection. You may not see it now, but one day you'll look back and realize that the pauses were part of the process. Faith is choosing to believe that everything is still moving in your favor, even when it looks like nothing is happening at all. To have faith in the unknown is to live with open hands and a steady heart. It means releasing your obsession with certainty and replacing it with a steady confidence that you are guided, guarded, and grounded. When you no longer need to know every detail, you free yourself from the prison of anxiety. You learn to flow with life instead of fighting against it. You start noticing that even the things you didn't plan turn out to be blessings in disguise. That's how divine timing works. It unfolds perfectly when you stop trying to control it. And sometimes, faith in the unknown means believing you are capable of walking through darkness without losing your light. It means trusting that the God who led you into this moment has already prepared the way out. It means accepting that you may not have all the answers, but you are still exactly where you need to be. When you can stand in the middle of uncertainty and still say, "I trust you," that is faith in its purest form. It is strength wrapped in surrender, peace born from patience, and love that refuses to give up hope. Faith in the unknown is not about seeing where you're going. It's about believing that wherever you go, you will never walk alone. Peace is one of the greatest gifts you can experience in this life. Not the kind that depends on perfect circumstances, but the kind that exists despite them. True peace doesn't come from having everything figured out. It comes from trusting that even what you don't understand is being guided by divine hands. Many people spend their lives chasing calmness through control, thinking that if they can just fix everything, they will finally rest. But peace doesn't arrive through control. It arrives through trust. It is born in the moment you stop trying to carry the world on your shoulders and allow God to carry it for you. Trust is the foundation of peace. When you choose to trust, you release yourself from the heavy burden of worry. You begin to realize that no amount of overthinking can change what's meant to be. Life becomes lighter when you stop demanding to know every reason, every answer, every outcome. Trust invites you to breathe again, to stop running from fear and start resting in faith. You start to understand that things may not always go your way, but they will always go God's way. And that in itself is enough, because His way is wiser, kinder, and more complete than anything you could design for yourself. Peace through trust doesn't mean you stop caring. It means you stop clinging. It means you stop allowing anxiety to be the driver of your life. It means you show up each day, doing your best, and then releasing the rest. You no longer carry tomorrow's problems into today's peace. You stop replaying the past and start embracing the present moment as a sacred place where God is still at work. When you trust deeply, you don't panic when things fall apart, because you know that sometimes things have to fall apart for better things to be built. To trust is to rest, not in idleness, but in assurance. It's like a child who falls asleep in a storm, not because the thunder has stopped, but because they trust the one who holds them. That's what trust feels like. You no longer need proof to feel safe. You don't need guarantees to feel secure. You can sit in the middle of chaos and still say, "It is well with my soul." That is peace, not the absence of trouble, but the presence of unwavering faith. When your heart trusts, your spirit quiets. When your spirit quiets, your perspective clears. And when your perspective clears, you begin to see how every moment, even the difficult ones, are stitched with divine purpose. Sometimes peace comes only after surrender. You may fight, worry, and resist for a long time before realizing that peace has been waiting for you to let go. The truth is, you can't hold both control and peace at the same time. One has to give. The moment you loosen your grip and hand your troubles to God, peace begins to flow in. It's not an instant feeling. It's a steady knowing that grows stronger with time. Trusting God doesn't mean life becomes easy, but it does mean your heart becomes unshakable. You begin to face each challenge with quiet courage, because you know you are never alone in the fight. Peace through trust transforms the way you experience life. It changes the way you pray, the way you wait, and the way you endure. You no longer beg for things to happen faster. You thank God for His timing. You no longer fear what's next. You find contentment where you are. You stop searching for peace in people, possessions, or plans. You find it in your connection with the divine. When you place your life, your future, and your heart in God's hands, you find that peace was never something to chase. It was something to receive, because peace doesn't come when everything around you is calm. It comes when everything within you trusts. Pain is one of life's greatest teachers, a silent, powerful force that shapes you in ways comfort never could. It humbles you, deepens you, and pushes you toward growth that you never would have chosen willingly. Most of us spend our lives trying to avoid pain as if it were the enemy, but what if pain is not here to destroy you? What if it's here to reveal you? Every heartbreak, every disappointment, every loss carries within it a hidden lesson, a divine message waiting to be discovered. When you stop asking, "Why me?" and start asking, "What is this trying to teach me?" you begin to see that pain has a sacred purpose. It is not a punishment, it's a passage. Through pain, your soul learns strength, patience, and faith in ways that peace alone could never teach. When you are hurting, it can feel like the world has stopped. You might wake up with a heaviness that words cannot describe, wondering if you'll ever feel whole again. But even in that silence, even in that ache, God is working. He never wastes your tears. Each one waters the soil of your growth. Sometimes what feels like breaking is actually becoming. Just as a seed must crack open to release life, you too must sometimes be broken open for new purpose to emerge. Pain prepares you. It strips away what's false, what's temporary, what's not meant for your next season. It empties you so that you can be filled again, not with fear or bitterness, but with wisdom and strength. The truth is, you cannot find purpose if you refuse to walk through pain. Every person who has ever done something meaningful has walked through seasons of difficulty. The struggle refines your character, it builds empathy and depth. When you have suffered, you love differently, speak more gently, and understand others more deeply. You become more human and more divine. You begin to realize that your pain is not only about you, it is also about what you can give to others because of what you've endured. The scars you carry become stories of hope for someone else. The very thing that once hurt you becomes the thing that heals others. That is the beauty of purpose born from pain. There are moments when pain makes no sense, when loss seems unfair and waiting feels endless. It's in those seasons that trust becomes your anchor. You may not understand the reason now, but faith tells you that there is one. Sometimes pain delays your plans to protect your destiny. Sometimes it closes one door only to open another that leads to greater blessings. What you see as rejection may actually be redirection. What you feel as loss may be preparation for something greater. When you begin to look at pain through the lens of divine purpose, it no longer feels meaningless. You start to see that even in suffering, there is design, a pattern that only makes sense in hindsight. Pain also reminds you that you are alive, that you are capable of feeling, of loving, of growing. It stretches your heart so that it can hold more compassion and more faith. It teaches you to depend not on your own strength, but on divine strength. There's something sacred about reaching the end of yourself and realizing that grace still holds you up. Every time you survive what you thought would break you, your faith grows a little stronger. You start to trust that if God brought you through before, He will do it again. Pain becomes less about punishment and more about partnership, a partnership between your endurance and His power. So when you walk through the valley of pain, remember this: it is shaping you for your purpose. Every challenge is molding your heart, sharpening your vision, and preparing you for what's next. You are being refined, not ruined. Every tear, every sleepless night, every unanswered prayer is creating a version of you that is wiser, softer, and more powerful than before. You may not see it now, but your pain is planting seeds for future purpose. One day, you will look back and realize that what once felt like the end was actually the beginning, the divine turning point that aligned your heart with your higher calling. Grace is the quiet thread that weaves through every moment of your life, often unseen but always present. It is the gentle whisper that says, "Keep going," when your strength fades. It's the warmth that surrounds you even when you think you've failed. Grace doesn't wait for you to be perfect. It meets you right where you are, in your mess, in your confusion, in your exhaustion. It's the reminder that you don't have to earn love or prove your worth. You are already enough because grace has already claimed you. It is the divine reminder that no matter how many times you fall, there is always a hand ready to lift you up again. Every breath you take, every sunrise you see, every second chance you receive, that's grace in motion. We often think of grace as something grand, a miracle, a major breakthrough, an answered prayer. But grace is much quieter, much simpler, much more constant than we realize. It's in the small mercies of everyday life, the friend who calls at just the right time, the unexpected peace after a sleepless night, the opportunity that appears when you were ready to give up. These are not coincidences, they are divine fingerprints. Grace doesn't always remove your struggle, but it gives you the strength to walk through it. It's the reason you've survived storms that others thought would destroy you. It's the unseen power that carries you through seasons you never imagined surviving. Grace teaches you to slow down and appreciate what is, to find beauty even in the broken places. When you stop chasing perfection and start seeing the present as a gift, you begin to notice how much grace surrounds you. It's there in the laughter of a child, in the rhythm of rain, in the stillness that follows chaos. Grace is not a reward for good behavior. It's a reflection of divine love that never stops giving. Even when you stumble, even when you doubt, grace does not abandon you. It whispers, "You are still worthy," and invites you to begin again. Every failure becomes a lesson, every delay becomes direction, and every disappointment becomes redirection under the covering of grace. The more you open your heart to grace, the softer you become. You stop judging yourself for not having it all together. You stop punishing yourself for mistakes that were meant to teach, not define you. Grace turns your guilt into gratitude, because you start to realize that even in your weakest moments, you were never alone. You begin to forgive more easily, not only others but also yourself, and that forgiveness brings peace. You no longer strive for approval from the world, because you understand that grace already made you enough in the eyes of God. When you live from grace, you stop performing for acceptance and start walking in purpose. Grace also gives you the courage to extend love where it seems undeserved, to others and to yourself. When you've experienced grace deeply, you can't help but share it. You understand that everyone is fighting a battle you cannot see, and sometimes what people need most is not judgment but compassion. Grace reminds you that love heals faster than blame, and understanding transforms faster than anger. It teaches you that the strongest souls are not those who never fall, but those who rise again and help others rise with them. Grace turns pain into wisdom and wounds into testimonies of hope. And perhaps the most beautiful thing about grace is that it never runs out. No matter how far you've wandered, grace knows how to find you. No matter how lost you feel, it knows how to lead you home. You cannot exhaust it, outgrow it, or escape it. Because grace is not dependent on your performance, it's a reflection of divine love that has no limits. When you begin to see grace in every moment, in joy and in sorrow, in victory and in failure, your entire outlook changes. Life becomes less about striving and more about trusting. You begin to live with open hands, grateful hearts, and peaceful souls, knowing that even in the most ordinary moments, extraordinary grace is still at work. There is a rhythm to life that cannot be rushed, a sacred timing that unfolds with precision, even when it feels painfully slow. Divine timing is the art of trusting that everything happens exactly when it's meant to. Every delay, every detour, every unanswered prayer is not a sign of neglect, but a sign of divine coordination. You may not understand it while you're waiting, but one day you will look back and see how perfectly everything aligned. When you force what's not ready, you end up with frustration. But when you trust the process, peace replaces panic. There is a quiet strength in knowing that what's meant for you will not miss you, even if it takes time to arrive. So often, we live in a world of urgency. Always chasing, always striving, always demanding answers right now. We pray for doors to open instantly, forgetting that preparation is part of the promise. Sometimes God delays what you're asking for because He's developing who you're becoming. You see, a blessing given too soon can become a burden. Divine timing is never about punishment, it's about protection. You're being prepared for what you've prayed for. Every waiting season is shaping your patience, strengthening your faith, and refining your heart so that when your moment comes, you'll be ready to receive it fully. The wait is not wasted, it's sacred. In moments of waiting, doubt often whispers the loudest. You start to wonder if you've been forgotten, if your prayers have been overlooked, or if your efforts have gone unseen. But divine timing requires trust, not proof. Just because you can't see movement doesn't mean there isn't progress. The seed beneath the soil is still growing, even when it's invisible. God often works in silence, behind the curtain, beyond your understanding. Every "not yet" is an invitation to trust that the story is still unfolding. The waiting room is not a void, it's the workshop of faith. And while you wait, you're being molded into the person capable of carrying the blessing you're meant to receive. When you surrender to divine timing, you begin to find peace in the process. You stop measuring your life against others and start trusting that your journey has its own rhythm. Comparison fades when you realize that your timeline is not supposed to look like anyone else's. What takes someone 1 year might take you 5, but that doesn't make your story any less beautiful. God's clock doesn't tick according to human schedules. The moment you stop rushing and start resting, you'll begin to see beauty in the waiting. The waiting itself becomes a form of worship, a declaration that you trust God's plan more than your own impatience. There are lessons that only time can teach. Sometimes divine timing is about more than arrival. It's about transformation. Waiting builds strength. It forces you to slow down and look inward, to confront your fears and strengthen your faith. It teaches gratitude, because when what you've been praying for finally arrives, you'll appreciate it more deeply. Divine timing is like the rising of the sun. It can't be hurried, and yet it always comes. You may not control when the light appears, but you can trust that it will. The challenge is learning to rest while you wait, to keep faith alive, even when the clock seems to stand still, and when the time finally comes. When the door opens, when the prayer is answered, when the vision comes to life, you'll realize why the wait mattered. You'll see that what once felt like a delay was actually alignment. Every heartbreak, every pause, every redirection will suddenly make sense. Because divine timing doesn't just bring you what you asked for. It brings you what you need when you're ready for it. And in that moment, you'll understand that everything had to happen exactly as it did for your purpose to unfold perfectly. That is the beauty of divine timing. It never fails, it never forgets, and it never arrives too late. So, my dear friend, as you journey through this life filled with uncertainties, remember this truth. You were never meant to carry it all alone. There is a greater hand that holds you, a divine wisdom that sees beyond what your eyes can comprehend. When you put everything in God's hands, you release yourself from the weight of worry and step into the light of peace. you begin to see that every struggle had a lesson, every delay had a purpose, and every loss made room for something greater. Nothing in your story is wasted. Not a single tear, not a single moment of pain. Life will always have its storms. There will be nights that test your faith and days that stretch your strength. But even in the storm, you are not alone. Trust that the same God who calmed the seas can calm your heart. Trust that the same power that raised the sun this morning will rise within you too. You may not understand every chapter right now, but you can still trust the author. And when you choose faith over fear, peace over panic, surrender over control, you'll find that miracles begin where your strength ends. You are not defined by what breaks you, but by how you rise through it. Each time you choose to trust instead of worry, to hope instead of fear, to believe instead of doubt, you become stronger, wiser, and more aligned with your purpose. God's timing may not be your timing, but His timing is perfect. He's not late, He's preparing you. He's not silent. He's speaking in ways your heart will soon understand. So today, open your hands. Release what you've been trying to control. Stop fighting battles that were never yours to win. Let peace flow where panic once lived. Let faith rise where fear once ruled. And let grace fill the spaces where you once felt empty. Because when you put everything in God's hands, you will see His fingerprints all over your life. Hold on to that truth, not just in moments of joy, but especially in moments of doubt. The same God who began this journey with you will never abandon you. He will guide you through valleys, lift you through trials, and carry you when you cannot walk on your own. All He asks of you is trust, not perfect understanding, not flawless faith, just trust. One small step at a time, and as you keep walking, keep believing, keep surrendering, you will one day look back and realize every delay, every heartbreak, every unanswered prayer was leading you here, to peace, to purpose, to divine fulfillment. So put everything in God's hands, and then stand tall. Knowing this, when your life rests in His hands, nothing can ever truly fall apart.